for flood is crucial even in areas with low flood risks. Experts believe proactive measures such as building emergency kits, elevating appliances, installing check valves and constructing barriers is sacrosanct during the flood. It is also critical to stay informed, move to higher ground and avoid flood waters. Welcome to 30 Minutes on NTA News 24. The 2024 flood prediction is a genuine concern, and on this edition of 30 Minutes, we're taking a closer look at preparations at the sub-national level. I'm Lydia Sampson. The first report by Thomas Ogbetere is looking at how Nigeria is bracing for potential floods in 31 states, following the Nigerian Hydrological Service's predictions that 31 states are at high risk of flood in 2024. How is the federal government taking necessary measures to mitigate the impact of this flood, as well as prepare for emergency response? Thomas Ogbetere, it is over to you.
The Director General of the Nigerian Hydrological Services Agency, Clement Uze, has issued a warning about the high risk of flooding in 31 states across Nigeria in 2024. This alert comes as the agency predicts increased rainfall, which could lead to overflowing rivers and potential flash floods.
From our analysis, using several parameters like rainfall amount, the river system we have in Nigeria, and all the several measurements we have been having on our rivers. Talk about the topography of various locations in Nigeria, the geology, the land use pattern, temperature, humidity, all kinds of parameters. These are things we use to do the prediction. So from the prediction we have done, so we're expecting that about 131 local government areas which cut across 31 states of Nigeria will suffer. We place them at a high risk level in terms of flooding for the year 2024, and additional 249 local government areas which cut across the whole country and the FCT. We expect that the flood will happen at a moderate level.
Nze emphasized the need for proactive measures to mitigate the impact of the anticipated flood, highlighting the importance of early warning systems and preparedness at both the federal and subnational governments. He urged particularly state governments to take necessary steps to clear water channels, relocate residents in flood-prone areas, and provide adequate relief materials to communities that may be affected. The DG NISA also called for increased public awareness, urging Nigerians to avoid building structures in flood-prone areas and to adhere to safety guidelines during rainfall. The agency's effort aligned with the government's commitment to ensuring the safety and well-being of its citizens, especially in the face of natural disasters like flooding.
The issue of flooding incidents has become a perennial issue, not only in Nigeria. It is all over the world. But it is when there are certain level of disasters that accompany the flooding incidents that we'll talk about the flood in the country. So long as there is rainfall input, we should expect, depending on the environment, there will be flood. Then we have a lot of things to do before the flood incident sets in every year. And like what we are doing now, this interview, which we are going to air, and the publication we did some time ago, public presentation of the flood outlook for 2024, is one of the things that needs to be done before another round of flooding. That is one. That is a non-structural method of averting flood. Tell people ahead of time, let them know what to expect or what is likely to befall them. As they say that before warned is before armed. And that is one. Two, we expect that the states, we have 3 levels of government in Nigeria, the sub-nationals should be able to take heed to the warning that have been released. This have been made available to governors in the states, who are the chief executive officer in their own states. Likewise, local government level have their own also executives, councillors, and so on at the community level. So it is a better that one, even before now, you should have begun to clear blocked drainages. Don't say I did it last year.
The DG also harped on ensuring that drainages are clear of debris and functioning properly. He reiterates regular cleaning of gutters, drains, and ditches to prevent blockages. Implementing green infrastructure practices such as rain gardens, permeable pavements, and retention ponds to manage stormwater runoff.
Clear block drainages, pull down structures that are within certain range, within the flood plains. I can recall that in zone 5 here in Abuja, in Western zone 5, there were some structures that were pulled down, about 3-story building or 2 for a hospital. They were pulled down around 2005. Such should be done. Now there are small rivers within the environment we are. You can do you deseed them, clear those debris. Apart from the gutters you have to clear, apart from constructing drainage systems where they do not exist, there are small rivers we can find in the cities or in the communities that you can clear to ensure that the excess runoff from the road is taken care of. And then human activities. These days, up to time, people will pave the whole of our environment. If the plot of land you are going to build, formally, you are not supposed to consume up to more than 40% or 60% of that compound with your building. You should leave some places bare for overland or runoff to percolate into the ground. Don't put interlock everywhere. When you put interlock everywhere, water will not find a way to seep into the ground, and then it will come out as a runoff, which, depending on the volume, will now aggravate flood incident in the area.
Other stakeholders, including the representative of the National Emergency Management Agency, says using landscaping techniques such as grading to redirect water away from buildings and building infrastructure are some of the ways to mitigate flooding in Nigeria. They also emphasize the need for collaborative efforts between the subnationals, the local government, and the communities on the fight against the menace of flooding across Nigeria.
It is a collaborative effort to ensure that everybody is brought on board and we can always work together when the situation arises.
Coordination between local, state, and national agencies, whether it's a lack of community involvement in planning, or even investments in infrastructure, in search and rescue equipment, or in really anything that's supporting emergency response. We're hoping to find that out. What can be done in the short, medium, and long term to invest in resilience?
The kind of infrastructure that's needed in terms of making Nigeria more resilient includes simple things like flood defences, building the riverbanks, understanding where we need to protect things like power, drinking water, telecommunications, the things that people rely on for their everyday life.
NEMA also gave assurances that the agency is consulting partners to ensure effective and efficient disaster management in Nigeria.
At the beginning of this year, the Nigerian Meteorological Agency, NIMET, released the seasonal climate prediction. Just last week, Nigerian Hydrological Services Agency released the annual flood outlook. And immediately following that, NEMA did a technical expert workshop to bring out the disaster management implication of these predictions. This is with the intention of reaching out to subnational government and reaching the target population in those areas that have been classified highly probable to flood. As it concerns the relationship between this workshop and our mitigation effort, like we said, 2022 occurred, lessons were learned, and those lessons have been brought into fore in putting our preparedness plan for 2024.
Stakeholders emphasize that mitigating flooding in Nigeria requires a multifaceted approach that addresses both structural and environmental factors. They emphasize that proactive management of the environment and water draining systems, implementing green infrastructure, and raising awareness about flood risk are key steps that must be prioritized.
So things like flood rescue, water rescue, boats and equipment, and emergency centres for coordination. All of these things are important.
We can invest in strengthening our systems and capacities at federal, state and local government levels. You go to a typical local government and when every disaster is local, for instance, and then there's a flood disaster or another kind of disaster, what are the arrangements in place to ensure that local communities are saved, are protected?
Similarly, interrogating climate resilient practices and investing in flood management infrastructure, they believe, can help reduce the impact of flooding on communities. As Nigerians continue to navigate the challenges of flooding, they noted it is essential for government, communities, and individuals to work together to implement sustainable solutions that protect lives, property, and the environment.
Thank you, Thomas. Moving on now, Ibrahim Bello Gunda is focusing on states often prone to flood. What are they doing to avoid repeat of similar flood disaster? How much awareness is being created? What about people living in floodplains? Any plan to relocate them and clear the drains? Let's get all the details from Ibrahim Bello Gunda, especially since the sub-nationals bear the brunt of the looming flood crisis.
The recurring floods in Nigeria has continued to negatively affect livelihood, especially food and agriculture, submerging over 266,000 acres of farmland annually, leading to food shortages and scarcity in worst affected areas with ripple effect across country and across the value chains. Hence, the annual flood outlook report by the Nigeria Hydrological Service Agency 2024 outlook with alert projections for 148 local government areas in 31 states of the Federation at high risk of flood, with moderate flood impact expected to affect 249 local government areas in 36 states and the FCT, which cannot be taken with levity but requires proactive measures. Flood, being one of the most common destructive natural disasters in Nigeria, poses significant threat to the environment, agriculture, livelihood, infrastructure, and communities nationwide. This is more so with people living in flood areas, emotionally dependent due to their ancestral home and heritage, unfortunately usually not mindful of the inherent dangers. Experts and stakeholders are of the opinion that flood preparedness is crucial as it helps to minimize risk to lives, property and emergency plan and supplies to those affected, as well as deepening awareness creation, which if properly implemented can make a difference in coping and recovering from flood disasters.
We already swung into action. We carried out assessment of flood affected areas in the FCT, that of last year. Having gone out on that assessment, we went out, it was a joint assessment that we carried out with our stakeholders in different MDAs. We went out with development control. They were present there, Department of Engineering, Department of Environmental Protection Board. We went out with the National Emergency Management Agency and many others, Satellite Towns Development and Facility Maintenance. So when we went out, what we did was that the areas that were affected with flood last year, we carried out the assessment and identified the needful, what we need to do at such locations.
For some years now, it has always been a thing that we're always scared of, that it will come when the month of April starts coming in like this. And with the prediction, we have been trying to, the state government have been proactive over it to ensure that our people don't suffer the way they have suffered in 2022. So they are very much aware of the impending flood. We are going around sensitizing them, and they are being told every day to move up, and to also, the state government is trying to prepare places for them in case the thing comes.
Bayelsa, whether there is flooding, no matter the magnitude of flood, everything must always pass through Bayelsa. And so it's something that is a recurring decimal in Bayelsa. But this time around, there are new innovations that we are introducing, more especially with preparedness. We try as much as possible to prepare early enough, because whether we like it or not, Bayelsa will also, take its own share of the disaster. And so the best thing we can do is to prepare early enough and to see how we can mitigate the effect of the flooding in Bayelsa.
The state government order the SEMA to do high-level stakeholder engagement, especially those on the high-risk locations. And another issue, because we learned a lot of lessons previously, we use that lessons that we learned as part of our early recovery and emergency preparedness plan. We now bring on board the Director Dams and Reservoir among our key stakeholders emergency preparedness to monitor all these dams and give us a prior notice so that all the communities on the flood risk areas they start evacuating.
Already, flood-prone states and the FCT have started using early warning system to drive community awareness, emergency plans, risk assessment, infrastructure resilience like flood barriers, among other measures, with the view of mitigating the likely impact on lives and communities.
Once the rains become very heavy, if there's a heavy downpour, our volunteers and response team, they quickly barricade the road, they lock it up and wait. After the rains, after that heavy downpour and the water level subsides, they will unblock the road for people to go. The same thing, that of Galadima interchange, there's another access road. That slip road that comes from Games Village, that road that goes to the airport, we normally block that permanently until the rains are over. So as soon as the rains become very heavy, we are going to barricade that road as well, and they will now use the alternative road.
There is a lot of advocacy that we went around educating communities of what will happen, and if it happens, what they will do is being explained to them. And we are still doing the advocacy. God willing, we will go around to tell the people, now that we are expecting something from Tigadam, we have to tell them, we have to educate them.
Before now, the Delta State government has been involved in this massive stormwater project to carry away water from houses to the Niger and to even both around the state, both in Warrior and other places. So they are improving on it so that waterways have been cleared. Some buildings that are on waterways have been demolished, have been removed, and proper planning is going on. And even in the riverine area where water have used to carry up some communities, water banks, embankments are being prepared, and people have been told to move further up.
One of the solutions they introduced to us was preparing dikes to see how we can hold the water not to overflow into a residential area, protecting those people that are there. And also too, there is a particular place we need to introduce non-return valve, where when the water passes, it doesn't return back to where it's coming from.
Similarly, some of the states that have been experienced flood are working with stakeholders to ensure people living in flood-prone areas key into the proactive action plan in place, as well as ensure they avoid human activities that can worsen the annual flood situation.
Nasarawa is at the high flood risks, Kogi, high flood risks, Niger, high flood risks, Kaduna State, high flood risks. They all surround the FCT. The residents of FCT are cooperating with us, but we still have a lot of challenges. Some of the challenges we have is that the indiscriminate dumping of refuse. People will buy a bottle of water or they have a drink and they just trash it anywhere. Some of them may be in their vehicle and they throw it outside. Some, wherever they sit down, they trash it there. And we have the challenge of people stealing the covers of manholes.
Until there is flood and we see it working, That is when the community will be more appreciating to the government. For now, they just see that the government is making some effort to put things right. But a place like a community that is flooded, that used to be flooded before, if there's a flood now and there is no flood anymore, or the impact is very reduced, you will see more, happiness from that community.
100% receptive, because we told them that it's going to be a bottom, top, vertical and horizontal approach. We at the state, we cannot come and respond within 24 hours, probably. But if the community, start responding, they're the first responders. So look at their strength at community level, their weakness, their opportunity and the threat. So the state government will now complement.
Some states, on the other hand, are also devising means to tackle the issue of perennial flood in their states, with technical committees putting in place barricades, drainages, embankments, among others, to improve agricultural production and living conditions of the communities projected to be affected.
Intensify sensitization, our disaster marshals, volunteers, vanguards, and local emergency committees. These structures have been put in place. We have built their capacities. And box culverts that cannot contain a large volume of water, they have been reported. Department of Satellite Town Development are already working on it.
A contract is being given for opening drainages, for doing bridges. A lot of culverts is being done. They have to engage external some partners to do the work.
The certainty of climate change has also spurred the need for preventive measures in anticipation of challenges due to previous destructive flood occurrences, thereby reiterating the importance of early warning systems like the annual flood outlook to minimize impact. However, the impact key players believe may be devastating to lives, livelihood and communities at high-risk states without proactive plan to minimize the impact of the flood.
During and after a flood, experts say prioritizing safety by avoiding damaged areas must be prioritized. The flood warnings, ironically, serve as a reminder of the importance of proactive disaster risk reduction strategies in the face of a deteriorating global outlook. Please stay safe. We'll be back next week with another critical issue. Thanks for watching. I'm Lydia Sams.